Welcome. Welcome to the Ohio State University Latinx Experience webinar series, Faculty and Administrator Edition presentation, the final webinar in our three-part event series that discovers, unpacks, and discusses the lived experience for three different populations at Ohio State: student, staff, and faculty. Thank you to our moderator, panelists, attendees, and future viewers for joining us tonight. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Michael Bustamante, he, him, his pronouns, and I am the Latinx Student Success Program Coordinator within the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. The Latinx Student Success Team works to cultivate Latinx communities for academic, social, and professional support. The LSS team promotes full inclusion of Latinx students and seeks to raise the visibility of Latinx groups on campus. Through high-impact programs and collaborations, the LSS team is here to serve students, staff, and faculty of the Ohio State Latinx community. This goal is met with three signature programs: the MESA Early Arrival Program, the MESA Leadership Institute, and the Conversaciones con Café event series. More information about LSS can be found at the Office of Diversity and Inclusion's website, odi.osu.edu. Now, before jumping into our question and answer panelist presentation, I would like to note that ODI is celebrating its 50th anniversary. As the university celebrates its sesquicentennial, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion has a special anniversary of our own to recognize: our 50th birthday. From our tumultuous beginnings in 1970 until today, our office has stood proudly as a fierce advocate for historically underrepresented students, staff, and faculty. The world has changed over the past half century, but we have never wavered from our bedrock belief that greater inclusion has merit and diversity brings us strength. It is important to us to honor the giants of diversity whose shoulders we stand on today. And that is why, in early 2021, we will induct the first 50 icons of inclusion into our inaugural Office of Diversity and Inclusion Hall of Fame. As we turn 50, we vow that our best days are ahead of us. We have ambitious plans to expand our capacities by tirelessly building on the foundation of our first half century, removing barriers every day. We all benefit when diversity and inclusion is woven through our daily work. And to succeed, we must all pull together. We look forward to your continued commitment as we push onward for the next horizon. A few comments before I introduce our moderator for tonight. We are offering closed captioning for this event, so please feel free to use that function below. Please feel free to ask questions also using the Q&A function. And finally, all three of our webinars will be uploaded onto our website, so be on the lookout for that. Now, all of that said, please allow me to introduce our moderator for tonight. Dr. Nieto is Assistant Vice Provost for Outreach and Engagement in the Office of Academic Affairs. Throughout her 15-year-long Ohio State career, Nicole has held positions in the offices of Student Life, Human Resources, Research, and now Academic Affairs. Nicole has a PhD in Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies with a specialization in Folklore Studies from The Ohio State University. Nicole serves on the President and Provost Council on Sustainability and is a 2019 OSU Glass Breaker, an honor given to women who have advanced their careers at Ohio State while serving as mentors to other women. She is also a member of the Ohio Prison Education Exchange Project Advisory Council. Nicole teaches courses in WGSS on popular culture, literature, and food. She is also a STEP faculty mentor. Prior to arriving at Ohio State, Nicole served as Assistant Director of International Student and Scholar Services at the University of Alabama. Welcome, Dr. Nicole.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's so wonderful to be here with you all tonight and to be moderating this panel. I'm very much looking forward to it. It is my great honor to introduce our panelists this evening. Dr. Fabio Lecci joined The Ohio State University as a postdoctoral researcher in 2005 after earning a doctoral degree in mathematical psychology from the University of California, Irvine. Prior to that, Dr. Lecci worked in private industry and earned an MBA in Brazil, where he was born and raised. At OSU, he was promoted to associate professor in 2013 in the Department of Psychology, teaching on our Lima campus. There, he has received three important campus awards: the Outstanding Teaching Award in 2012, the Outstanding Scholar Award in 2013, and the Faculty Award for Student Mentorship in 2015. He has also served as the campus associate dean and the campus representative with the University Senate. His research continues to involve the mathematical modeling of cognitive processes and the study of organizational behavior. He's also given talks in Latin America on topics such as professional success and the higher education system. Dr. Andres Chavez is an assistant professor in the Department of Evolution, Ecology, and Organismal Biology here at Ohio State. He is an evolutionary ecologist and uses a multidisciplinary approach to study the patterns and processes of diversification in mammals. Many of his questions in biology are inspired by natural history, and he strives for an integrative research program that synthesizes information from molecular, ecological, and behavioral studies. Dr. Chavez has a varied professional background in biology, including both in the academy and in government. He completed his postdoctoral research in the Department of Integrative Biology and the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology at UC Berkeley, and in the Department of Biology at the University of Washington. He completed his PhD in the Department of Biology in the Burke Museum of Natural History at the University of Washington. Dr. Laura Lopez is an assistant professor of astronomy here at Ohio State. She earned her bachelor's in physics from MIT in 2004 and her PhD in astronomy and astrophysics from UC Santa Cruz in 2011. Subsequently, she was a NASA Einstein postdoctoral fellow and a Pappalardo Fellow in Physics at MIT, and a NASA Hubble postdoctoral fellow at the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. She joined the astronomy faculty at OSU in 2015. Professor Lopez's research focuses on the birth and death of stars using telescopes across the electromagnetic spectrum. Professor Lopez is chair of the Astronomy Department's Diversity Committee and runs their monthly Diversity Journal Club. Professor Lopez helped to extend the OSU Physics Department's Master's to PhD Bridge program to the OSU Astronomy Department. And she served for 6 years on the American Astronomical Society's Committee on the Status of Minorities in Astronomy. Wow, this is really wonderful to have you all here tonight. So thank you for being here. We'll now move forward to questions for the panelists. And audience members, please feel free to type questions that you have for the panelists in the Q&A space below. And we'll address those questions as they pop up. So to get us started, Fabio, I was wondering if you could share what you think are the most prevalent issues affecting the Latinx Buckeye community.
Sure. Thanks, Nicole. And thanks, Michael, for organizing, helping organize this. It's a pleasure to be here. I will mention some of the things that have been true for me and may resonate with the community, because it's always tricky to answer that kind of question, not to imply that I'm speaking for the entire Latinx community or thinking that the community is monolithic, right? So I'll mention 3 things I think that have been important for me along the years: seeing representation, feeling respect and understanding, and being treated as an individual. And so when you put it all 3 together, it may seem like they are dissonant, but they're not, right? Because you, by knowing that I'm Latino, you have a glimpse at my background, but you don't really know who I am. I expect you to respect the background, but I don't expect you to jump into the conclusions about who I am. And so that's how they go hand in hand. And seeing representation has been important. And you'll probably learn later that I haven't seen much in my early years in higher education. And so we can talk about that later, but that has been important, because if you don't see that representation, it sends the message that it must be very difficult to be understood or accepted or welcomed into that community. And so those are items that have been important for me along the years, and I think that still resonates out there in the community.
Thank you so much. Laura, would you like to remark on that?
Yes, I agree 100% with Fabio. I think all of those issues are very important and are very prevalent in our community here at OSU. I think in general, these are also issues that are being raised given the current climate in the world and what's happening. I think that is really bringing these things to the surface and much more, becoming much more aware of them in terms of belonging and whether your presence is valued and whether, whether you're important in the community. I think that's the challenge that people in the Latinx community are facing right now.
Thank you so much. I think, I'm hearing kind of themes of belonging and representation. I certainly want us to revisit that as we move forward. Andreas, I'd love to hear from you on this initial question to the panel.
Sorry. Yeah, I really like to echo what Fabio was saying about Latinx identity not being monolithic. Now, I was raised in California, and the majority of Latinos out there are mostly Mexican American. But I've noticed, and I've only been in Ohio for a few years, but I've noticed, the diversity of Latinos here is much more than that. And I'm myself am multiracial. I'm half, my father's Mexican and my mother's Japanese. So grew up very much in a multicultural household. And I always think of myself as, being this sort of window into the future of what our society will be like. And so, just to play on this idea that, we don't necessarily represent any kind of monolithic identity, although I think there is a lot of cohesion amongst us, and finding that is, I think, important and a challenge for us to, try to get better at here.
Thank you so much. I want to follow up with you on something that you've brought up and then hear from our other panelists. You talked a little bit about your own identity. And so I'm wondering if you can share with us how you self-describe your Latinx identity or Latino identity.
Yeah, it's complicated on a lot of levels. On my father's side of the family, we've on my maternal grandmother's side, we've been in the United States for over 100 years. And so, the family immigrated into Texas from northern Mexico, and then my grandmother moved out to California. So, this idea of, what's really American has always bothered me, because it usually doesn't include Mexicans, but, our family has been here for quite some time, and I feel is rooted in this country as, as the next person. On the other side of my paternal, or my paternal grandparent, or grandfather, he was from Mexico City, and he moved to the United States for a brief period of time, started a family, and moved back. And so I have roots in Mexico as well, that are still in Mexico. So yeah, it's complicated because, that's half of my identity. My other half is Japanese. My mother is from Japan. She moved to the States in her mid-20s. So she's not even a US citizen, has had a green card for almost 50 years. And so yeah, I have a very complicated background, but I do feel like, this is sort of the future. And other countries have experienced a lot of this kind of multiracialism. I mean, I imagine where Fabio is from in Brazil, there's a lot of interracial families and stuff like that. And so I think in the United States, we're sort of catching up to this sort of idea of, what a multiracial identity can really be like. And so, yeah, I identify as, very much a multiracial, and but that embraces everything in my background. So
Thank you. Fabio, could you share with us a little bit about how you describe your Latinx identity?
Sure. I like to joke about that and say simply that I'm a Latin American, but I say that in multiple ways, right? And I mean that because I have integrated in the culture here. I'm an American citizen and I have a Latin background. And so, I'm a Latin American in the mixed sense that Andres was talking about. And I think you see that I have integrated, but you also see that I still keep my foot in some of the traditions and some of the things that we used to do, especially on the social side, I think. Right. I don't mind impromptu barbecues with friends. I like the friendly yet competitive domino games, for example. And Andres is right about the notion of feeling that you are integrated in a multicultural environment. I grew up that way. I have an uncle who is German, actually married to my mother's sister. Brazil has received immigration from all over the world, as you well know, after World War II especially. And so we have a lot of Italians, we have a lot of Japanese, we have a lot of Germans, and we have Spanish, many Spanish. And so for us, that was never a question of whether they belong here or are they integrate or will they integrate. It was just everybody's here, and so let's figure out how to live together. And so Andres is right on that, and I think that's why I like to joke about being Latin American. That's the simplest definition that you can think of, and yet you don't know exactly what that means, right? And so we need to figure it out together as we try to move toward being able to include and live with diversity.
Thank you. Laura, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. So yeah, so my dad is Mexican American and my mom is white, is German American, and so I look like my mom, but I am still Latinx and I still am Mexican American, so most of my Latinx background comes from my dad's family, and his family has been in the U.S. for a long time. They immigrated in my great grandparents' generation. They flipped a coin between going to Chicago or to Los Angeles, and they got Chicago. So that is where my grandparents' generation grew up, was in Chicago, and then my dad was born there. So in that sense, it's I'm very Mexican American. I have both parts, and then obviously then I have the white part of my background as well. So it's a bit of a mixed multicultural situation in terms of what defines me.
Right. Thank you so much. And I have the same background as you, actually. So now I want to talk a little bit about representation, and this is something that you all have brought up already. And I want us to first think about to when we were kids, okay? And what kind of representation we saw. Did you see where you are now in your careers represented when you were children? What did you think that your career path was going to be as you were younger? And then really kind of how does representation play out, and how do you see this as a really integral piece in really seeing more Latinx folks in the academy and also in STEM disciplines like many of you are in? So let's go. Andres, would you like to get us started?
Sure. So I grew up in Davis, California, which is the university town. Mm-hmm. My parents were sort of loosely affiliated. We didn't. My father grew up in Sacramento, in a pretty poor community, and he wanted to make sure our family didn't grow up there, and so he moved to Davis because he knew it was a good place for the kids. And so, you know, I grew up with a lot of families or kids whose parents were involved in the university, but you know, especially back then, you know, I didn't have a lot of, well, I had maybe a couple of other Latino kids whose kids were professors, but it wasn't a lot. I mean, you know, if I had to stereotype what a professor was when I was a kid, it definitely wasn't, you know, someone who was from my background. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think it really hit me until college where that representation was really important. And yeah, I think growing up, it was, I mean, we all kind of knew we were going to college because we lived in a well-educated community. But, you know, I didn't really realize the importance of representation until college, and then just sort of seeing, you know, other kids seem to have things figured out a little bit better than I did. And I was wondering, like, why didn't I have that? And part of it was, I think, you know, some of it, the family history. You know, my father went to college, but again, he came from a really poor background, and we, you know, they climbed the ladder, but, you know, that was a long climb when I was growing up. And so I didn't really have that same kind of experience that I think a lot of my peers did while I was growing up about, you know, the value of education. I mean, of course, my parents really valued it, but it wasn't the same kind of preparation, I don't think. And so I think having that representation is just really important for the, you know, preparation aspects of for the younger generation.
Thank you. Laura, I'd love to hear about your experiences as a Latina in STEM, and also thinking back to your childhood and kind of what you aspired to be.
Yeah, so my mom is a piano teacher and my dad owned a gas station. And so they are not scientists. And but I think I got into astronomy when I was in 5th grade because of a class field trip. And so of course I didn't really know what a profession in astronomy would be like. I just sort of thought, oh, that's what I want to do. And so I wanted to go to college to do that. I think it was a bit of a family struggle for me because my dad did not go to college and was actually against me going to college. He actually thought that going to college was being lazy. And so there was a lot of fighting that happened. I'm glad that I went to college anyway, but it's just sort of to emphasize that there are, you know, family issues sometimes that occur. And then for my dad's side, I was the first person who ever went to college. And in terms of representation, I think my community where I grew up was very white. And so I didn't see, you know, really many other Latinx people. And, you know, into college, that was also true, especially in physics. There's not much diversity. And so there really wasn't many people like me. And I found that I actually sought out mentors who had similar backgrounds, not really consciously, but sort of subconsciously. And so it turned out that my undergrad advisor and my PhD advisor, and actually my first postdoc advisor, are all Latinx also. And I totally did not, you know, intend for that to happen, but it did work out that way. And I realize now, looking back, that I was just seeking out role models and people who I could aspire to be like. And so it's really interesting seeing it now, looking back, that that's what I was seeking that I didn't have previously.
I mean, that's really fascinating. And I think it really shows the importance of representation, right? That you were able to have these Latinx folks be so much a part of your academic journey. So very cool. Yep. Fabio, I'd love to hear from you. And then we have an audience question I'll put forward to the panel.
All right, I think I was debating in my head here if I was going to start with the representation side or the childhood, only because they are different for me. The first time that I set foot in the United States, I was already 22 years of age. So the childhood thing. I grew up in Brazil. I grew up in a Latin culture, and so it's different. Now, the reason why representation is important, I know is important, is because I didn't have any when I came to the U.S. And so my undergraduate degree, I did not have a single Latinx professor. My degree is in mathematics. My PhD, I did not have a single Latinx professor or mentor. The only person that I interacted on occasion during the PhD who is a Latinx person was an administrator, but that was in my last year because I was elected into being president of the Graduate Student Association there, and so I was representing the students. I had to interact with administrators more, and then there was a Latinx representative there, and it is important to have it. I know that I had to sort of do it in my own way, and I saw role models that I thought I could try to model very good behavior after, and I know that I have not lived up to that all the time. Late Duncan Luce, for example, was a very accomplished mathematician and mathematical psychologist, and one of the most unassuming individuals that I've ever met. And he had a very nice way to welcome me into the program, of which he was a director at the time. And he interviewed me to be admitted. And then he just recounted after the interview was over, he officially ended the interview. And then he said, "Oh yeah, if you have time, let me share you this with you." And then he said that he had lived in Brazil for a year, and that his daughter actually is married to a Brazilian. And so it was a way for him to say, "Well, you're not going to find anybody who is a representative, but I hear you, I can relate to you." And so that was nice. And he was not my advisor, but he certainly served as a mentor for me in the way that I aspired to be as a professor and a professional. Now, how did I make it? How did I get here? I think it's the support that I had from home. I'm actually the first PhD in my family, so I'm a different type of first generation, right? A first generation PhD, if you will. But then my family has its own history. My mother got a PhD after I got mine, and so she went back to school inspired by me going to graduate school. And so there was always a great deal of support at home, and the diversity growing up was always I think the backbone of how I grew up. And in fact, she was super happy. My mother was super happy when I chose to go to a particular high school, because the high school was known to be the most diverse one. And so I was thrilled because of the academic programming that I knew that they would have. She was thrilled because of the diversity. And so it was always very supportive, both about my academic pursuits, but also being very mindful about being as inclusive as you can possibly be.
Thank you so much for that. Can I ask, how old was your mother when she got her PhD, and what is it in?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think she finished in 2008. So I'll have to mention her age. I suppose she was then 55 when she completed her PhD. Yes, her birthday was just yesterday, so I spoke with her on the phone. She was very happy, and she is in business administration. So she had a master's already, and then she went for the doctorate, and now, and interestingly enough, she was always a professional. She was always a practitioner in her professional life. And now she's also a professor, and I think that it's kind of funny because I was the second professor in the family, because my uncle has a master's degree, but then he taught for a few years in college, and then I'm a professor now. My brother's a professor, and now my mother's a professor as well. So.
It's such an inspiration. I love it. All right. So, Andres, let's get you started with this question from the audience, and then we'll hear from some of the others. So what do the panelists think about belonging to such a broad and diverse group as Latinx? Does it feel natural to be a part of this group, or like outsiders are categorizing them into a group they don't feel like they belong to?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I
think for me, that question has evolved a lot as I have aged. When I don't think I really put my race into a bigger perspective until I hit college. I mean, of course, I always realized I was different than most of my community in Davis, California, but the significance of that didn't really matter until I hit college. And so college was really when, I started to notice like people going to these different groups based off of identity, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, so on. And so, and in college, I think that used to get at me a little bit more, like, where do I fit in? Do I feel natural as, identifying as Latinx or not? And I kind of had to get over that feeling of, really trying to pigeonhole myself into one group or the next. And just, at this point in my life, I feel like it is natural for me to feel a belonging to multiple groups. I always describe my preference as far as fitting into groups is not really, I'm not someone that I can easily be contained or compartmentalized into one category. I actually do well and better and feel natural being in those in-between spaces between groups. And so, yeah, I mean, I have friends from a lot of different cultures and races. But yeah, as far as my personal identity, I think, Latinx is definitely up there. Japanese is up there. But yeah, it's natural for me at this point in my life. So.
Thank you. I love what you said about feeling very comfortable in these in-between spaces. And it reminded me of Gloria Anzaldúa and when she writes in the Borderlands, though I don't know that she was necessarily feeling comfortable many times in those borderland spaces. But yeah, I like that space too. Yeah. It's kind of a liberating space.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Laura or Fabio, would you like to add anything to that question? Laura?
I think when I identify myself, I always specify Mexican American because that's what I feel the most connected to, what I identify with most. But then I really appreciate that there are groups for Latinx people, and I do feel most comfortable in these groups, and I feel like I belong there. And so I really appreciate these events, these panels, everything that is done, because I find them to be very supportive environments where I feel like I can be myself. So I do really like them a lot.
That's great. Thank you. Fabio, anything? Okay.
Yeah, I would just a few words. I would say to answer Diane, I would say the simple answer is yes. And then if you want to hear the rest, I will echo a little bit of what Andres has said, and I will add a caveat. As long as somebody else doesn't assume that that's the only group that I can belong to, or that everything that is to know about me just because I have affinity with that group. So yes, it's natural to belong to the Latinx community across all the Latino cultures, and I'll even include Spain and Portugal and Italy, for example, outside South America, just to expand our horizon a little bit. I have a dear friend from Portugal who always says, "Remember that we're the original Latinos." So, we inherited a lot of the culture there, and we shared lots of similarities across the Latinx community, and so it feels natural. But as long as nobody else is pigeonholing me into just that category, as long as you allow me to move freely across categories, that feels perfectly natural. So I don't feel pressured into saying that, oh, I have to belong there because somebody's telling me so. No, it does come naturally. But I do not want. I am very careful, and I think that I echo what Andres was relaying a little bit, because for a while I tried to gauge what was going to be other people's behavior about me belonging to the group. So as long as you're not making assumptions about what that means, then it all works out fine.
Thank you. We have a few more questions from the audience, and two really good ones. These have all been great. So Andreas, I'd like to start with you, and think back to when you first came to Central Ohio, and what was the most surprising adjustment or discovery that you faced when you moved here? And what would you tell someone contemplating a move here for study or for a job?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big adjustment. I mean, like I said, I grew up in California, where, you know, multiculturalism is sort of the norm. I just moved from the Bay Area, and so yeah, it was an adjustment. But I'm I guess I'm someone that I think it kind of goes with, you know, being comfortable in these in between spaces. I can work with any kind of people. I mean, it can be conservative, rural people to, you know, urban liberals. And I've had those experiences with all these different kinds of people. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, I kind of view myself as I'm part of my service in this world is to share some wisdom and light. And, you know, I represent an identity that's not very common. And I, like I said, I think it's sort of the future. And so I like sharing that. And, you know, I don't think that's, in California, I'm not that exceptional, I'd say, but here it's even more so. And, but, you know, it's nice to be able to expose people to, you know, different kinds of people. So.
Thank you. Laura, Fabio?
Yeah, I think the underrepresentation is sort of what hit me the hardest. I think, you know, like Andreas, I was in California for my PhD, and that was comfortable and wonderful in terms of the representation. But then I was a postdoc in Boston, and then came here, and both of those were not the best in terms of representation of the Latinx community. But I was happy to see that there were groups and student groups here, and that there were already events and things happening, and I was able to join in and be part of those, and that made the transition much easier. I was appreciative of the SACNAS chapter in particular, and sort of getting involved there. So I don't know that I was necessarily surprised by the representation issue, though, to be honest, but it was an adjustment nonetheless.
Thank you. Fabio, would you like to add anything?
No, I think it's similar. I think it's just, I also moved from California to here, but of course I didn't grow up in California. So I had 4 years of living in California, adjusted to living there. And I knew that I was going to have to learn a new culture here and adjusted here. So I was expecting differences, and one of those differences was a different demographic makeup. And I think it's not a surprise, but it does take an adjustment. And just to take advantage of the microphone here, I know that it was Yolanda who asked that question. Yolanda, I haven't talked to you in a long while, so good to have you here.
That's great, thank you. And my little dog has started barking, so I apologize if you can hear him in the background. I think he sees the little trick-or-treaters. So let's talk a little bit about the talent pipeline. And you know, we've talked about how representation is important in the talent pipeline. So how do you think the talent pipeline is going in your disciplines? And are you engaged in supporting the pipelines, particularly around Latinx students? And another piece of this question is also, can we, Ohio State, what can we do to support this work? So Laura, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I really try to help with the pipelines and to increase representation at all levels. You know, the graduate, undergraduate, postdoc, everything, faculty levels, and you know, this goes from making sure that we recruit and retain people, that the climate that we have in our departments is inclusive and supportive, so that Latinx and other people of color feel comfortable in these places. And so I try to do those things. I think that in general, what I do personally is I've worked with a lot of Latinx students in research, getting research experience both at the undergrad and the grad level. I think doing the master's to PhD bridge program, I think we try to increase the PhD attainment in astronomy and physics. And because the representation is so low, just by increasing that attainment here at Ohio State, that actually has impact nationally, because there are just so few PhDs that are earned. And so, yeah, and then in terms of the climate, I think what I've tried to do is just continue having discussions to learn more, to encourage people to self-educate about diversity and how to have an inclusive climate, and to make sure that we have practices that are going to build up this representation and be encouraging of the representation.
Thank you. Fabio, what would you like to add?
I work a lot of what Laura said. I think being mindful that we are role models in what we are doing, and so practicing that and trying to be available. Um, uh, you all know this, the campus here is an undergraduate campus, and so I don't focus much on the discipline per se, but just being a role model and saying you can make it, and if you want to chat with me because you're feeling underrepresented, come and talk to me. I'll certainly know a thing or two about that, right? And I remember that actually who drew my attention to that was actually a former student, that we had on the campus. And he wrote me a note once toward the end of the first semester that he was taking classes with me. And they just said, I just wanted to drop you a line and saying how great it was to have you as one of my professors this semester, because you were the only professor that I had who was from any minority group, and he was from a minority group, and so he felt that even though we're not exactly in the same minority group, but because I was there, it felt to him like I was a model that he could follow. And so actually I appreciated the feedback because it made me be more attuned to that and be more available and try to be there for them and behaving in the best way possible to enhance and improve our inclusiveness.
Thank you. Andreas?
Yeah, I think like the other members on the panel, the talent pipeline is probably not super great in our field. I'm in evolutionary biology, and it's actually really bad as far as representation of different minority groups, particularly Latinx group. And I felt like I've almost done more sort of prior to coming into this position than I have since I've been here. And part of it is just that pressure of being an assistant professor is just kind of overwhelming sometimes. And it's been a little bit of a struggle to really like get as involved as I would like to be. But like as a graduate student and a postdoc, I mean, I've been involved with the National Sackness organization for over a decade now, and as a graduate student, I organized diversity symposiums for our department, our biology department at University of Washington. I was involved pretty heavily in the local Sackness chapter there, and yeah, I'd like to do more of that kind of thing here, and it's just yeah, this part of my career just feels like I'm getting pulled in like so many different directions. It's been a little bit of a struggle to really commit as much as I would like to, but that's my goal. I want to get more involved in those kinds of roles.
That's great. Thank you. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you all are dealing with our current situation with COVID, how that's affecting your teaching, your research, and also how it's affecting you personally as well, not just professionally. Laura, would you get us started, please?
Sure. So I'm teaching an introductory astronomy class for non-majors right now, and it has 130 students. So that means it's all online. And I'm grateful that it's all online because I don't want to be in a classroom with 130 students right now. Personally, I have asthma, so I'm very much like quarantining at home 100% of the time. And obviously it's difficult to teach, Zoom classes, to keep classes engaged. So I try to have lots of polls and I give surveys to ask the questions, how's it going? What can, I do to help make you more engaged? And I try to be very flexible with students. If they say that something came up or they're having a hard time, I say, no problem. I trust you, you're good to go. Just get the assignment in when you can. And I think that's been a good approach because I know that everyone is having a difficult time. But yeah, so it's difficult to engage students in these online classes. And then similarly, with my own research group, I have regular meetings with my students over Zoom. Everything's over Zoom, and that's good. But I think the thing that I'm missing and haven't quite worked out completely is for students who I mentor informally. Like, how do I reach out to them? Because generally it would just be, I might pass them in the hallway and, strike up a conversation and have coffee with them. And so it's sort of forcing me to, make these informal mentor relationships more formal and try to pursue meeting with them and just fill my day with Zoom meetings, which is fine. I'll deal with it. But yeah, it is a little bit tiring sometimes. And I think I might need a break after this semester from my computer, but yeah, so it's an adjustment, but I think it's still going forward. But yeah, everyone is having a hard time, obviously.
Thank you. Fabia.
Well, professionally is the same as Laura. All of the classes I'm teaching are online classes at the moment. I have been in quarantine mode for many months now, and so personally it's tough. But with the students is trying to model calmness, I guess, and being more flexible. It's what I have tried to do with them, just so the classes by themselves and because they're coming in a different mode for them as well don't become a source of stress on top of everything else that is going on. I am demanding of my students, and so I continue to be, but trying to be flexible with cameras on or off, for example. Sometimes they have it on, sometimes they don't have it off, and I tell them that I won't require. And if they write me a note and say, oh, couldn't do that, or I needed to go to the hospital, I'm not asking for any documentation of that. And so the flexibility comes that way. And then I think the attitude has been more of, I'm here, ask me questions, talk to me, and see if we can do anything differently to support your learning, even in a different environment. Now, on the positive side, Laura already mentioned how tiring it is, and how tired we can get. But on the positive side, I have learned a lot about how to teach online. So now on the personal side, that's the side that we don't share necessarily with the students. It's been tough. It's been very difficult to carry on and being as isolated as I have been, and not being able to be with my family for some good birthdays, 70ths and 40ths and so forth. And so that's tough. But I think that we're all more or less on the same boat, and so the empathy comes from that, and then you carry on the professional side that way. Now, it has hindered research capability as well, and so I hope that the university recognizes that as we move along with that.
Thank you. Andreas?
The first few months of the pandemic were really rough. We have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old at home, and when all the daycares shut down, it was just chaotic. It was really hard to get any work done and all that. Daycares opened up in the summer, and that really just made things a lot smoother. I taught a class over the summer, and I taught the first half of our evolution class, which is 230 students, and so I'm already done teaching that this semester. And the evolution class, we already had taught it as a hybrid course before, where it was sort of a flipped class, and we had video lectures and stuff. And so the transition into 100% online wasn't actually too rough. And I want to echo what Laura was saying about just being a little more lax with the assignments and things like that. I've had actually really good experiences teaching this semester. I think having those guards down a little bit has relaxed the students and has relaxed myself. And maybe it's a good lesson to learn, for non-pandemic time is, don't need to be so uptight about everything. And, we're all kind of in this together sort of attitude. So yeah, maybe some of this will carry over. We'll see.
Yeah, certainly. And, I think self-care, people are really talking about self-care in a way that they haven't before for themselves, for their students, for family members. So yeah, there are some positive outcomes despite all the really awful outcomes as well. I'd love to shift the conversation a bit now to kind of traditions and celebrations and how you keep your culture alive within your family or for yourself. And Fabio, I'd love to get started with you.
Well, a lot of the celebrations I can't partake because of timing, right? So for instance, where I was born and raised, we have, of course I'm partial, but we have the best carnival in the world with street celebrations, and I can't be there, and I haven't been there for 20 years during that time. And so some of that I can't do, but one thing that I have I think started to do maybe last year and have increased because of the pandemic is listening to football matches for us, the Latinx community, but soccer matches for the American community through a radio station from my hometown. And so I just listen to them. They stream live nowadays. And so I listen to that, and I keep in touch with the football because it's a big part of our culture. And so that way I can always keep in touch with my cousins, and we make fun of one another if we don't root for the same teams. And so in fact, I'm in the minority there because I'm the only one who roots for one of the two big teams in the city, and then all of my cousins root for the other. And so we always joke around. And so I keep in touch with that. And so not so much for the celebrations. It's difficult to go every year for Christmas, for example, because the break is not very large. Our seasons are opposite, so their vacations are opposite. So it's hard to connect. So, but I connect that way.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, so my family has like every other week a Sunday Zoom call with the whole family, and it's sort of it's actually really cool, and I hope that we do this even past the pandemic, because I think it's been a great way to catch up. And it took a little bit to adjust for me, because I thought of Zoom as work, and now like Zoom with family is a weird juxtaposition, but I find that it's a very good way to just start a new tradition where it's like a family dinner, but it's we're all in our various locations, but it's a good way to catch up.
Thank you, Andreas.
Yeah, well, with little kids, I really want them to grow up, being proud of their heritage and background. And so I don't know, I guess we just do a lot of little things to try to ensure that, could be what we eat, it could be what we're just talking about at home, but where we're from, family history, our ancestors and stuff like that. So I think it's a lot of those little things that we do at home to try to make sure that, this is something we're going to keep in our family, this identification of this identity that we have.
Thank you. And I think that's a wonderful way to end our panel conversation this evening. Thank you all very much. I'm going to send it back to Michael now.
This was an amazingly thoughtful conversation, a really real honest look into your backgrounds, into your personal lives, into your lived experiences from student to professor. I thoroughly enjoy this. And so from the sense of belonging, the future of multiculturalism, the importance of representation, being comfortable in the in-between space, serving as Latinx role models, managing COVID-19, and ending on this traditions, this was great. And so in closing, I want to thank our moderator and panelists for tonight, our attendees and our future viewers for joining us for the Ohio State University Latinx Experience webinar series. We've had some great conversations with students, staff, and faculty, and each of these webinars have been recorded and will be distributed to our network and on our website at odi.osu.edu. Should you have any future questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me directly, bustamante.40. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a great night.